We're going to get into a couple things here today. I guess I want to show it to you in action, right? It sounds like a number of you were looking at moving potentially from Dynamics GP to Business Central, or maybe a few of you to some other solution as well. What we want to show you today is that really with Popdock, you have all the tools that you need to move that data and get to be able to keep it. I guess that's kind of the key part, is that you're going to be able to access that data and not have to lose 10, 15, 20 years of GP data. So I'm going to start by just jumping right inside of Business Central, because I think there's probably no better way than just to see in practice how this actually might look for you. So if I jump inside of Business Central and show you Popdock, if I click on this right away, what we're going to see is that, again, if you're coming from that GP space, you're going to see the experience where it's kind of your smart lists inside of BC. This is one of the biggest things I think that Microsoft, they came to us and said, hey, all the people that are moving from GP are complaining about where their smart lists are. So can you guys do something about it? And like we have, we've already done this. And so it's something that, again, I think helps make your transition a little earlier. Just to hammer home a couple points that Cam said, I just want to just spend 2 minutes and get you familiar with the interface. So this happens to be a purchase transaction list pulling from live BC data, but I'm going to get into the history in just a second. What I want to show you though is the user experience, right? This brings the power back to the end user. So if you want to add a couple more columns, right? If I want to add these 3 columns, I can quickly do that. It's going to now go out, grab the new information, and fill it with the 3 new columns that I added. Okay, there we go. So now here are the 3 columns that we added. So again, the end user has capabilities of doing that on their own. If you want to get rid of those columns, right, equally important to not only add stuff, but to remove stuff, you can do that with a couple clicks. We can even maximize our screen real estate now and get back to where we were. A couple more things in there though, for the people that, again, especially came from that GP world and love your smart lists, is that you can do some cool things like move columns around, right? So if I want the vendor to be the first field, if I want to group by the vendor, I can actually get not only an overall subtotal, I can get a subtotal by each vendor, and I can still drill down and see all the transactions. If I wanted to group by 2 things, I can do that. And so now I'm pulling it by vendor and by document type, and I can still drill down and see all those layers. So some really nice things in there that just make it really easy to use. Now, another really important one, right, was always the go-tos inside of GP. And so you have that capability too, is you can drill down and see any type of detailed information down below. I have some screen issues here, but it allows me to drill down and see all of that information without having to leave that screen. So again, much like the go-tos, it allows us to do it, and it doesn't even have to be in the same system, right? It could be pointing to an external system as well if we needed. Okay, probably one of the most important things though has always been, how does the user get the capability of filtering down the data that they want? And we give you the capability of having an unlimited amount of filters, right? So there's no more 4. You can just keep going, right? You have no limits now on what the end user can do to filter down the data that they need. So this is an awesome feature that, again, gives the power back to the end user. The other thing is that we've done some things in here that make it really easy. So if I want to change an and to an or, I can do it with a click. If I want to, well, let me just show you in practice here. If I want to filter this down by document date, how would we do this in the past? We'd probably do a between statement, right? We say between this date and this date. And every time you go in, you're changing it, going, okay, now I'm doing it for this, this period of time. What we found by studying is that people were really using it a slightly different way. So let me show you what we've added. We've added some comparison fields inside of here. So this allows us to say, you know what, really what people wanted was everything that happened this week or this month or last quarter. right? Those are the kinds of date ranges we're typically looking for, or we even have it around fiscal periods, right? If you have a custom fiscal period that is, not a standard calendar year, you can actually have those set up inside of here and use those fiscal periods to actually filter down the data that you need to see without having to go in and change it all the time. The key part is once you get the filters down to the way you want, you save it as a favorite. You save it with all those credentials. You can share it with other members or teams even if they had access. You could do some cool things like that. So there's a quick little thing on what is the experience like. But let's flip this over to not live BC data. What I want to flip it over is to the specific scenario where we're talking about what is the kind of data that we can actually see from history. And so here's a unique list. This is actually a very special list inside of here. It's pulling all the history. In this case, it happens to be sales history, not purchasing history. It's pulling all of this from both GP that was archived, and it's also pulling live information from BC. So I've went a few hundred records in, and what you'll see is this last column changes where we're pulling stuff that comes from, again, this top records are from Business Central, but most of this is GP history that we have archived to an Azure data lake. And so here's what's important about that is that now we give you the capability of, at some point in time, of being able to retire that old SQL server that's running GP. Is once you're fully moved over and we've moved everything into what we call an Azure data lake. The data lake allows us to really, in a cost-effective manner, store all of your GP data, and again, be able to access any of those smart lists or any tables or views or anything that you have, and again, see them right inside of Business Central. That's the key, right? Is that here's what's interesting. I have one list that allows me to find all the data, whether it was from history or was entered brand new into Business Central. So that's all I'm trying to show you here. Let's take it a step further though. Instead of just showing all of them, right, you can see there's 1,270 lines in this sample data. What if we pull up a customer? And now, what if I showed you inside of Popdock, or Popdock embedded inside of Business Central, is I can show you all of the transactions that were, again, inside of here. Let me refresh this one more time because I want to show you something. I can do the exact same thing that I showed you on the top part. I can show you one list. So now here's what's different about this though. This is filtered for this one customer. It's not everybody's transactions, it's only this customer's transactions. So I have, again, they're pretty new to BC. They only have 2 orders in BC, but they have 100 and some orders that came from their rich GP history. So this is the kind of stuff that you can do without writing a line of code, as you as an end user have the capability of a look inside of the data, no matter if it came from history or it's live from BC. It allows you to do the same kind of filtering on this as well. And again, really get down to just the data you want. And we can do this on a customer, a vendor, an item, an account, right? Some of those master type records, you can actually flip it around and you can show this kind of stuff on more transactional based. So whether it's the ledger entries or sales orders or sales invoices, you can show all kinds of information embedded in here without writing a line of AL code. And that's a key part, is unless you want to be a developer, we've simplified a lot of those access things and made it easy for you to do this.